All right. Hello. No, my dog's barking. Perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
I'm really excited to be here with all of you. Thank you for agreeing to be in the space with me and share your hearts and your experiences and all the lovely and wonderful things about you, in hopes that folks who get to watch and be with this can maybe see a little of themselves in you and your experiences and get closer to connecting to type. So I'm eternally grateful to have such a beautiful group of women here tonight. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yay, we love being here.
Yeah.
So if you will do us the honors of introducing yourselves, name, type, instinct if you feel comfortable, where you are in the world, what you do, anything that feels relevant, that would be lovely.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
Perfect.
So my name is Laura Jennings, and I live in Austin, Texas. I love Austin, Texas, and I am a Relational 2, Wing 3. And my paying job is I am a medical speech language pathologist, and I work specifically with patients who have traumatic brain injury or some kind of neurological trauma.
Big work.
I love it.
Thank you, Laura. I really appreciate you being here.
I love it. I love being here.
Ashley or Sarah?
I'm Ashley. I live in Fort Worth, Texas. I feel almost as strongly about Fort Worth, Texas as you feel about Austin, but not quite. I am a wife and a mom of 2 crazies. Last semester of graduate school, and I have a practice doing lifestyle medicine where I help people. I was supposed to say my type. That's way more important. I am.
Bring it, Ashley. We'll take all of it.
I am a self-preservation 2 with a wing 3.
Nice. And you were talking about what you were doing in life. Do you want to share any more?
No, that's it.
Perfect. She's a gift is what she is.
Oh, well, thank you, as are you.
All right, last but not least.
My name is Sarah, and I live in Southern California, San Juan Capistrano specifically. I am a 2, Wing 1 with a social instinct. I have 2 kids, and I work as a recipe developer, both in the cookbook, food blog, and currently write a meal planning subscription service.
These some badass ladies. Well, thank you for being here and being willing to share your experiences about type. If you wouldn't mind, kind of walking us through how you found the Enneagram or type, or even identified as 2, and sort of what those experiences were like for you at first.
Yeah, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm a certified yoga teacher. I've been teaching for over a decade. And several years ago, when I had my youngest child, I did a mentorship with a local yoga teacher that I really loved. And she required that you took the Enneagram. It turned out the whole group was a 2, so it was really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a sweet group. And then I know Celeste Holbrook super well. She's one of my best friends. That's how I met Erin. And she's big on the Enneagram, and then Erin. So I got drawn down the dark hole.
I love it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay, so my journey, I don't even know how many years ago it was. But Enneagram, we just kind of started hearing about Enneagram, and I read a couple of the kind of more personality typey books. I think it was Susan Stabile, that kind of thing. I read books like that, and then I actually did the test on the Enneagram Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And then the type 2, all of it really resonated for me. And then the more discovery that I did, I wanted to confirm and kind of affirm my own knowing of myself, especially as a 2, because you know how we're really great at being connected to others, but sometimes not as great being connected to ourselves. And so I learned about Aaron through Elise and Radical Wellness. And so I did a typing interview, of course, with you, and was able to hone my wing and my instinct as well. So.
Thank you, Laura.
I feel like I was introduced to it by way of my husband, who is a extra 5'5", and he's really into it. And so when he like knows something or learns something, he like is completely like all in. And it was every dinner conversation with anyone that we ever had was about Enneagram. Like I had no choice but to like.
You got a PhD in it.
Yeah. Yes. He's like, now works with Aaron. So I feel like I learned a lot that way. Did take the test. Did a typing interview with Aaron to confirm because there were some questions. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. And so what about sort of the discovery of 2 really were you like, ooh, that's me? Like what jumped for you in it?
Well, for me, when I read that 2s can tend to be resentful of people not asking them to do things, but them doing it anyway, I was like, oh, yep.
You know, it's so funny you say that, Ashley, because for me, what I identified was the most unhealthy things about the 2 is how I honed in on, oh shit, like I felt like all my mail was being read.
Yeah.
All the conflicts, all the struggles that I've had in relationships. And I would say the biggest one for me that was the hardest to look at, and yet just dagger like straight through the heart, and you know, the 4x4 across the head, is the tendency towards codependence when unhealthy, right? And the being really loving and connected, and also tending towards control and manipulation with our feelings when we want to get what we need done if people aren't doing it the way, you know, we need it in return. So those were the ways that I kind of confirmed, oh, these are the darkest parts of myself that I see really clearly. So
Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree with that also, is the painful parts versus I am, being a food person, I am like the chronic host. And so it was easy to be like, oh, I am always like the inviter and the gatherer and the cook. So I was like, of course that's me, like, because I'm the host. But I feel like in watching myself in patterns in friendships and seeing the unhealth and being like, this isn't purely generous. I'm like, I want something back here also. Like, that's what you learn about the 2 is like, it isn't just a pure heart all the time. Like, I want you to recognize me. I want you to affirm me. I want you to see that you saw my generosity. But it doesn't mean I want to stop that. Yeah. And it's okay to like recognize that, or at least in like my most intimate relationships, I feel like they know to give that to me. Like, it sets me at ease when you tell me like, you saw that I left dinner on your doorstep and you appreciate it and you love it. Thank you. All my examples are going to be about food. So
I love, I mean, that's your wheelhouse, Sarah. Did y'all, when you were in your process, did you guys ever come across the Sleeping at Last song for the 2? Because that was what nailed it for me before my typing interview. Was I listened to that song, and not only did I weep from feeling so seen and known, but the line in that song where they say, I would give you the oxygen out of my lungs, you know, it's so beautiful and yet so not healthy. I listened to that song and I loved it so much, and I felt so seen and known that was another part of my discovery, where just the art of that really spoke to me. So
totally. Ash, were you going to say something?
Oh, I just relate very much to both of you, and just like the not like, and just not using my voice and asking for what I need.
Oh,
That's been like, I want all the things. I want the recognition, but I just want you to know that I want that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
yes.
fun to be married to me.
You know what? Me too, Ashley. It's real fun.
I know. We're a joy.
Well, we are until we aren't.
Oh, that's correct.
I think it's so helpful to hear you all sort of orient to low side of type. I think that's the experience for lots of folks, regardless of type, is to sort of focus on the gaps or what's missing or what I don't do well, right? And I think that's part of conditioning our culture, is that there's always room for improvement, or sort of we drive to productivity or perfectionism or all of these things that push us forward. And also you all are so gifted and loving and warm and embody so much of what is high and attractive. And I don't just mean like aesthetically attractive, I mean like the energetic pull from here towards you, right? Like and so I think that's important to hold that space for both.
Yes.
As people sort of enter into, wow, this could feel like me, and yeah, I might sit over here out of comfort. I think when we think about two from a big container, a lot of times the literature boils it down to these really small bits of information around caretaking and nurturing, or, you know, and we really look at it from behavior, right? Like, how do I care? And sometimes people can misidentify into, because they might be in a social instinct and they value belonging, right? Like, so I'm a social 7. Whenever I take a test, I test as a 2. I am not a 2. Like, I don't have that sort of deep, warm heart emotional thing. I'm learning it by being in community with 2, but it's not natural for me. And so all of that sort of altruism that comes from just pure love. And so I think you guys being so clear about the high and low of your type helps people understand, sort of parse apart the difference between, am I a social instinct and I value belonging and community, or am I the strategic helper of a 2, where I give to get, but not in always. I mean, yes, every behavior has a high and a low side. Every time we have an opportunity to use it for good or use it for bad, right? Like, that's true for every human on earth. But when we think about the word manipulation, it really means to move something with skill, right? And so where 2s are incredible in our world is that they sort of draw people in and they get things moving to meet a need, oftentimes the need of the other or the family or what you're in service to. And yes, do I get seen and loved and appreciated along the way? Yes, like that is also, but it is usually always on the outside of self that I'm moving. So in health, 2s are really incredible leaders and friends and influencers because of that beautiful sort of pull and connection in the world. So when you think about the strategic helper view of the 2, what resonates for you?
My best friend and I, you know her, LB, Erin, we call it being golden. So it is like a very special gift that things generally go your way. And people generally like you, and you generally can weasel your way into the things that you want. And so we call it being golden. I mean, it's usually in sarcasm, like, oh, of course somebody gave you a car because you're golden, or something like, you know, crazy like that.
Hold on, people give you cars?
No, not me. I'm not that golden, but my girlfriend, yes.
I'm in the wrong business.
That's why I tell her all the time that she's more golden than I am, because people are just always giving her stuff. I'm like, gosh. But I mean, there's something to that, like strategic, like being able to like it's like the ultimate gift of reading a room, but like in a global
Oh,
way.
mhm,
Like any room you walk into, you're immediately aware of who, what, when, and why, and who needs what, and then you can fill the need, and it becomes a
mhm,
really great asset.
mhm.
And I mean, and to your detriment, both, but
Oh, 100%.
yeah.
I want, it's funny because, Aaron sent us some questions to think about, and that is literally what I wrote, Ashley, was our gift is, I feel like one of our superpowers is reading a room. We walk in a room and we can read everybody there and we feel everybody, like we feel them here in our heart.
Mhm.
And I used to think that every person was wired like that. And
Yes.
it's the Enneagram that helped me realize not everyone perceives the world from not only with those kind of eyes, but with a heart that can read the room in a way where, like you said, it's such a gift when you can see needs and meet needs. And
And
as we're always holding the paradox, right? It's a double-edged sword because our helping can also hurt when we're,
yeah,
not allowing people to figure out their own journey and work, right?
Hmm.
So,
Right.
yes. So well said.
And so that law of reciprocity, right, is the pattern with which the two learns to center, often in childhood, around security, right? Like, if I do, you love. And it's not like the three do, right? Where if I do grades or rules or sort of the achievement, if it's like I anticipate your needs, mom and dad, and take care of sibling, or get something for you. I see some of that anticipatory loving out of my daughter, right? Like, and then like looking to see if I notice,
mhm,
are you gonna sort of shine the glow on me? And I'm like, oh, there it is, look how sweet she is. Like, she sees my need, she meets it, and she's asking to be seen back. And
mhm,
so in my head, I'm like, I know she's still sort of forming personality, but in my head, I'm like, what would it be like to celebrate that early, so that she can show up in that in choice and joy, not out of sort of the lack that happens from sort of the severing of my own needs for the needs of other, when we think
mhm,
about the wounding of the two, right?
Hmm.
And so, yeah, the Enneagram allowing us the opportunity to sort of speak to somebody's listening, learn that this is like my gift and my way, and also to think about others' gifts and way.
mhm, mhm.
And gives you a whole new plate of ways to meet people's needs, right? Hopefully.
Yes.
Yes.
So, how do you see your two show up most in life and work, living, parenting?
I have a funny recent story that I'm actually like trying to pull back of my hostingness, because of the times we're in, and also I've realized how much energy that takes, and like denying myself to always care for people. I've realized like how depleted I feel a lot of the time, so I'm kind of trying to keep that in check more.
Mhm.
And I am chronically the baby shower, baby sprinkle organizer of all of our girlfriends. And there's a friend who's pregnant with her third, but of course we're still having another sprinkle. And all my friends just started texting me and saying, how can I help? What can I do to help?
Oh,
Like, what do you need?
oh,
I never said I was going to do it. I never volunteered. I never like, hey, like I didn't initiate. And normally I do, but I didn't this time because I'm like, I'm protecting my time. I don't need to host this one. Like someone else can take the lead. But because I like, people are so used to me doing that, I was just still getting the
mhm,
text, and I thought it was funny. I'm not offended. He was like protective of me. He was my husband. He's like, you don't have to do that. I was like, no, I think it's kind of humorous. Like they think I'm doing it. Of course they do. But I think that's how it shows up, is like you become
mm,
used to you kind of being the mother figure or
yeah,
the leader, like you said, Aaron, that like, it sounds like
mhm,
feel kind of prideful to say that, but that's not how I mean it. It's just like, that is how people experience you, is like, oh, Sarah's like organizing the shower.
mhm,
And that becomes sort of your role in
mhm,
your social structure or your family or whatever, like they know to go to you to get things done or to be hosting or to run the show or manage or whatever.
Yeah, because the
yeah.
sort of anticipatory component of you as a 2 is really competent to people. That feels really competent, right? And so to sort of play with that tension around leadership, a lot of leadership and a lot of people orient to leadership around competence. Oh, this person feels like they know what they're doing. I'm following them, right? Like we all sort of look around for the person that's got it figured out. And because you've read the room and you've already sort of figured it out way before anybody else, way before the 7s and the 3s, and then, you know, we sort of pull towards that because it's like, oh, they got it. How did they do that?
Plus, Sarah makes amazing food, so I would want her to host everything too. So I'm just saying.
I'm not cooking. I'll have you know that I made a restaurant reservation because I'm like, nope, I'm not cooking.
I am so proud of you for having boundaries. Look at you. That is amazing. Flex that muscle.
Guys.
All right, Ashley or Laura, how does it show up for you? Life, work, all the things.
So I have a recent story too. And I want to slap my own ass for this because I was so proud of myself for not getting overly involved. Okay. So I was connecting 2 friends who, just one of my dear friends asked for a recommendation. And so I connected her with another person I know who is a professional, you know, who could serve her. We had a whole conversation. Anyway, I connected them via email and I felt like that was in alignment for me. Like, you know, we talked about this. And then, you know, the professional person had responded and really, really, really wanted a response in a timely fashion. And, you know, this friend, that's not really how she rolls, you know, it's just kind of on her own time. And anyway, and I also knew some things that were going on in her life, but y'all, I mean, I told John, that's my husband, I had to almost sit on my hands to not reach out to both of them, like the professional friend to say, hey, let me tell you the 3 things that's going on in this friend's life. And that's why they're not responding. Or to reach out to the other friend and be like, hey, I set you up with this badass person who expects a response from you. Like, you know, you need to respond. I did 0 managing of the people. And I just was like, you know what? Everybody gets to be their own self. I don't have to, you know, take care of everybody and make all this better. And I sat back. Can you even believe it? I was so proud of myself.
That's amazing.
That is growth for Laura
So
Jennings
good.
right there. That is so much growth for me.
We celebrated hard.
Slap your own ass, as you said.
I did. I am telling you, because that is a huge deal for me. So when I say that, what I'm in the 2ness, how that shows up is I want to kind of use my skills in empathy and connection to all the people to just make it all connected and get everybody what they need. And I feel like it's my job to do so in spaces where it's probably not sometimes. So.
Ashley, how about you?
Yes, to all of it.
Ditto that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that like everything I've sought out my whole life has been motivated by my 2ness. So I don't know that I can really even I don't know that I have enough awareness of or enough space for my 2ness. I feel like Sarah and Laura are both like, yes, here is the space. And I'm like, well, yeah. I don't know. I stayed home for 7 years in my 2ness. My career choice forward is in my 2ness.
And same for me too. I was stay-at-home mom, homeschooler, and I work as I take care of people for a job. So same.
Yes. And so I think that 2ness just kind of dominates.
Sure.
I will say that in some ways, me going back to school and starting to work feels like a rebellion into my 2ness. But
You're
Mhm.
helping people.
I very much baby my people. So
You just
I don't know how much
reallocated
evaluating does.
energy to a paid platform. And
Now
not
you
a
get
free
paid for it. Yes, it's
Being
brilliant.
paid is something.
Yes,
It is.
It is.
And,
It is.
and at least that gives you something in return.
There's a number associated with it, okay?
Yeah.
So,
And if you're not in alignment or integrity, hopefully you say no.
right. Well, yeah, hopefully. We'll see. To be determined.
Mhm.
So often what can feel true in the cycle of two is that I get really good at anticipating needs. And this is maybe even truer in relationships like family or people that we work with a lot. So I get really good at anticipating their needs, and I feel a sense of pride or accomplishment, or like I'm doing it. I'm doing a really good job of my role of caretaking. And then that need falls flat because people are human, and they forget how to speak to your listening, and I can sort of deflate all the way back to rejection or resentment or feeling unworthy, or sort of the story around all of this big now doesn't feel as good, right? And so twos
Mhm.
have a tendency to sort of conflate and deflate really quickly around my worthiness because
Mhm.
of the way
Mhm.
people react to
Mhm.
need. How have you noticed that about you, and how do you sort of manage that sort of anticipating needs, the sort of rejection quality of it? What does that show up for, like in your life? It was a terribly worded question. Thank you for bearing with me.
I'm following. I would say that being included is a really sensitive spot for me. I don't know if you girls agree with that, but I'm trying to, I can think of a number of examples to answer you, Erin, but to not make it about food. I feel like that I know that is a sensitive point for me, because it will mark whether I'm likable or not. Like if I am invited to this girls' night, then I'm likable. But if I know it existed and I wasn't invited, I am all of a sudden completely unlikable by everyone. It is not like an isolated incident where I just wasn't invited that time. It's like the sliding scale. There's like
Mhm.
nothing here. There's like everyone
Mhm.
likes you or they don't. So I think that's what I'm kind of, when you're saying inflate and deflate.
Yes.
And again, I have like that social instinct that like I want to be in like the gathering, in the circles, that including feels like where I can see that.
Sure.
Mm.
That's a beautiful
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either you guys have a example. It's okay if you don't.
I don't really have an example. I definitely can relate to like people's approval equaling my self-worth, like for sure. And like,
Me too.
yeah, so I definitely
Mhm.
get what, I don't feel exactly the same ways there, but I feel that same amount of like, need for external validation essentially.
Mhm.
And I think that in my adult life, I've gotten much better at like choosing people that are worthy of that.
Mhm.
But still, even in that, like nobody should have that much power. And they
Mm.
do,
Yeah. Oh, I love how you said that. And actually, as you were talking, what it had me realize was growing up, and I would say until kind of my awakening, I would say in my early 30s, I spent so much of my life being the person who's committed to all the love and all the care and all the taking care of everybody. And I was not treated well in return, generally, in friendships or relationships, until I met my husband, and then not in girlfriend or friend relationships until my later mid 20s. That was not an experience I had. And so for me, it was very much I never allowed myself to matter enough to, I can't think of a better word than demand the reciprocity or have awareness that that's like what a healthy relationship looks like. I was just always trying to give and care and take care. And, I was the kid in high school who made everyone a birthday cake, like I was that person. And then people were, mm, some people took advantage of that.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
So what would you tell somebody, or what could people do for you that would give you more freedom to assert your own needs?
So my husband does this really well, really, really well. Um, of course, he knows me the best, and he's seen me in this journey. So for me, the thing that serves me the best is for him to say, "Hey, like I need you to take a minute, actually several minutes, and I need you to really stop and think and connect with yourself right now. What do you need and what do you want? And not, I don't want you to think about this person and this person and this person and this person, but are you able to connect with you, Laura Jennings, by yourself? What is it that you want?" And y'all, it is so hard for me. It is, I am still learning how to do this, but he is so good about helping me actually stop. I have to stop to do it. And what's funny about it is it's ironic, right? Because we can all sit here and say, I can read everyone else's needs, and I'm still learning how to do that with my own freaking self. But he helps me by asking the question, making it a priority, and then holding space for me to do it. And almost, well, Aaron knows my husband, he gives me a really healthy push and nudge to do it, So
All of his
awesome.
active energy.
he is, yes.
How about you, Ashley or Sarah? What can somebody do to give you freedom to assert your needs?
I think that like the thing that's kind of like what you were saying, Laura, like I don't know that I have needs until I am well pissed off about them not being met. Like a very healthy person. That's what you do. Just so you know, when you're in a healthy space, that's what happens. So strive, people. No, I think alone time. So like, and it doesn't have to be a ton, but if somebody can provide space for me to have 10 minutes, then I can usually like one, regulate, and two, figure out where I am in that situation, because it is so much easier to figure out what other people, where they are and what they need, which isn't always helpful, because sometimes all they need is to know my need,
Yes.
right, to like equalize the situation or to make it right. And so but I think just in the stage of life right now, like alone time is, and in COVID and homeschool, and none of us have had jobs outside the home for the last year. So like, alone time is the commodity right now.
Yeah.
How about you, Sarah?
I also, like you, Laura, I feel like my person who sees like all of my colors is my spouse, and he is the person who can stop me and be like, but what do you want? Like I'll be going to something and he's like, do you want to go? Like, I have to be reminded to ask myself, like, am I just going as I exist in so much of the should all the time in like tasks and sometimes in like friendships, that I don't have that, like, do I want to do this, instead of always just like existing in a should state of mind, that have that checks and balances of somebody who can give me permission to say yes or no. And I'm trying to give us some specific examples, but He laughs at like, I only really stick up for myself, like to him. He's like, you're so quiet and you go with the flow with whatever anybody else says. But with me, you're like, let's go. Like, he's like, here, you're ready to like stick up for yourself. But I watch other people walk all over you, but you don't do it with me. And I was like, you should be so loved by that. Like the fact that I can be that for you is like, yeah, I don't do that to anyone else. So, which is unhealthy. I don't want to be like that, but
that's because you
at
feel
least I have
safe
one
with
person.
him.
Yeah,
feel
like I feel
safe.
safe. I feel like I can say, I'm not making dinner. We're eating frozen pizza, like where I would never have anybody else come over and make them frozen pizza. But I feel like
Totally.
I have permission here.
Oh, Sarah, I literally feel like I am you speaking, because John has said to me so many times, he always says, you have just an endless capacity of the grace and the love and the offering and the nurture for everyone else. And because I also can embrace the very, very, very strong and powerful 8 with my husband. He sees a lot of that energy with me. And so I have the same exact story, same 100%.
Yeah.
And I always try to convince him too that is a positive thing. that he is so, that he should be so grateful because he gets to see that side of me.
Yes, the argument is a gift.
Yes.
When we start sort of putting more space in that it's neither good nor bad, it's just how I'm sort of showing up or asking for my needs, and sometimes I do it really well and sometimes I don't, right? And so I think that does help to breathe a little more life and space into it a little bit. And Sarah, sort of hearing you talk about the way that Hugh orients for you, it reminds me that when you think about that sort of spectrum of 2, from going all the way to sort of this incredible pride to this incredible rejection so quickly, that the avarice and sort of the greed around self-resource that is embodied in a 5 is a really beautiful entry point for 2 into sort of radically taking some of that back for self, right? And it's disorienting to watch it in the world. Like, how do they get to be so autonomous and so connected to self, right? And so that sort of like middle ground in between sort of radical sense of self and radical contact between 2 and 5 is really this beautiful push and pull. And so to hear you say that, like how protective he is of you and of your time and your resources, is a nice model in the world to go, oh, that's what it looks like. I can try that,
Right.
I think as you're saying that, that's why in my later 30s, my mantra, this was spoken to me at a retreat, and it's the silliest thing, and yet it was literally transformational for me, is the words, I matter. I don't know how I literally functioned most of my life understanding that everyone else matters, but I never included myself in that. So even hearing you talk, Sarah, I was a massive should'er too. I should'd all over myself all the time. I was like, this is what I should do. This is what you have to do to be like a good, loving person, put my, put Christian faith on top of that. And then you have an extra, whole set of that. And realizing that I could also extend that love to myself was stepping into 5 for me, realizing I matter. I get to say that I have a need, or I get to say, you know what, I don't want to do that. And I think that is what really, really facilitated a lot of growth for me, along with, as Ashley was talking about, a practice of stillness and solitude. I don't know about y'all, but it's only recently that I enjoy being alone at all. I hate being alone because my identity is so rooted in my connections with others and what I get from that energetically and the validation that I get. I have a very hard time sitting by myself historically. So that's been my practice as well, which is, from what I understand, very 5 energy, right? Stillness, solitude.
Yeah.
So.
He exists with his earbuds in all the time. Like the fact that I get a word in, which is like generally just like can listen to 2 books a day and just not, it doesn't matter if anyone else is around.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
When I'm with you, Laura, like I hate being alone. I want
I
someone always there.
No, I don't prefer it. Like, I would never take a vacation by myself. I have friends who want to go to a hotel room by themselves for 24 hours. And I'm like, I would die.
So how do you resource? How do you give yourself relief? What are the practices? What are the things that you do or you've listened to or you experienced? If you were like, I wish I had this earlier, I wish I'd done this earlier, what would you share?
Ashley, I feel like if you're a yoga person, you maybe would be a good answer to this question.
No, I guess I kind of relate to what Laura was saying in that like I wish that I knew that my needs mattered earlier. I think it like I say it's kind of hard for me to answer that question because it feels a little bit the question itself feels a little like regret, and I don't really feel that. Because my husband and I married when we were so young, and he's a 5 and he's very much a 5 and I'm a 2 and I'm very much a 2. And so like if I had known that my needs had mattered, we probably would not have married. Does that make sense? Because like we wouldn't have played each other's like shadow sides or each other's like light side. And like my whole journey as an adult has included him growing me in that way where like I didn't understand, and then I would think he was selfish. But now I'm like, oh, I understand it's not selfish. Does that make sense? So like the question, like it's hard for me to say I wish I had something different because or earlier because everything kind of came the way it should so that I could learn where I am.
No, I think that's really clear. I think if you could think about what gives you relief today,
Okay.
or solace or purpose or allows you to step into the graceful parts of it, like what would you have taken?
Okay, that feels better. I think just like
let's not undo all of you and Jake, right?
oh man, this is like 12 years of work. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you guys are hustling hard.
I think just honoring that alone time. Like I think we're the exact opposite of the 2 of you. Like Jake really wants to be only with me and our family all the time, and all I really ever want in life is some alone time. So like our recharge buttons are constantly at odds with each other. But as we've gotten older and more secure, it's very like we can just say it like I just need alone time, or like I really just need to connect, or like you're gone too much, or whatever it is, but for me that like just the honoring of being like it's totally okay to just be like I'm gonna take 30 minutes away from all y'all.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I saw a yoga therapist who's also an Enneagram coach, like kind of in a therapy sense. And she really helped me develop my own solitude practice. And it literally looked like setting a timer and sitting by myself with myself for 10 minutes. And it was so painful at first. And now it's evolved into a really beautiful meditation practice for me. And I love it. And I think it has not only transformed, I mean, I think it's just, I think the tentacles of the positivity that has that has affected not only, just in my whole mind, body, heart, whole self. So that practice has really served me in the meditation solitude space. So.
Yeah. And it sounds like, before Sarah, you answer, but it sounds like from the both of you, the sort of asking for getting the alone time and so the practice of asking and getting it, and then also the practice of staying in it, while maybe hard or uncomfortable, pays off. And so like I would hear in that, if I was watching you, to like stick with it, keep doing it, don't give up on it.
And I think it is like anything, and I'm sure Ashley can attest to this too. It's a practice. Like all of each Enneagram type has their way that they need to move toward health. And I think the reason that it's hard is because we have to practice it. It's not our nature. So.
Sarah, how do you resource, or what helps you?
I don't feel like I'm great with the meditation and pursuing alone time, but I like, maybe it has a different name, that like I need to be moving, but quiet and alone. Like I don't want to sit and just like have my little tea and journal or something. I need to be like in motion. That's why I really like walking. We live close to the beach, and being by the beach with like the expanse of like how huge the ocean is, where I don't feel important there. And I love that. Like I am not needed here. I am nothing. And like maybe that's touching on like our own pride in our helpfulness, and like, oh, I'm doing everything for everybody. But like I love just seeing the ocean and having that perspective of like, I am not everybody's everything. And I know there's like actual science to this, but like when you're moving, I feel like my brain kind of clears, like all the lists I make and all like my angst or to-dos or shit or whatever. I just feel it's almost like a digestion of my thoughts if I'm just moving. And I'm not talking like sweat, get in shape kind of moving. I just like, just walking is good enough just to clear the track. So
it sounds like you're grounding. It sounds like almost a grounding practice is what you're doing.
Yeah. Yes.
And if I live by the beach, I think that my meditation would be walking on it too.
It is remarkable.
I love the beach.
Yeah. Well, come visit.
I think there's a real word for it. I think it's called active relaxation.
That would make sense.
Yeah, like I think what you're talking about is actually evidence-based and pretty legit.
Yeah.
Here she comes with all her magic.
Yeah. Because I know I've read stuff that I'm not just like crazy anxious. It actually makes sense.
No, I think you're right on.
So before we end, will you share with me, everybody, all three people who watch this, what your greatest gift is? You'll have them. I see them.
I think it's so funny. It's so on brand that we're all like,
go ahead. Chirp.
I do have something to say though, because I actually wrote these things down. I mean, I think that our greatest gift, and I kind of said this earlier, but I feel like the two's superpower is in our ability to provide a heart-to-heart connection with people. And what I mean by that is I think people feel our love and care and nurture just in being in proximity with us. I think it is a ninja skill that then informs our ability to be a container, to be empathetic and compassionate in a way that I think just other personality types have to work more to have. And for us, it is so literally our nature. We have an inner heart knowing that I think is our superpower. And I think it's really, really, really beautiful, especially when we're healthy.
Thank you, Laura.
I was going to note that, and it stuck out because a couple people have said it to me recently, that, and it's the same way, they're like, I feel like I've known you a really long time. Like, I feel like I've always known you. And that, like, that feels like that's all I want, is like I want people to know that same thing, Laura, like I want you to feel like you can be whoever you are with me, and I will connect to that. That familiarity and that comfort is all that I want my energy to give. So I think that the gift is that heart, that familiarity. I also think there's a physical, like I would show up for anybody. Like you can call me and tell me you need me to come and take care of your kids because you can't walk, and I'd be like, I'll find a way. Like I'll be there. And and to just, you probably won't ask that of me, and most people won't, but even just knowing that I could be that for somebody who's in a tough space and can be like, hey, can I drop my kid off, or XYZ. I think that's the gift that we can give, is that sort of accessibility. Maybe that's a word.
Thank you.
I feel like you're saying too that people feel seen and known by you, and the familiarity space kind of expresses that. And I think that's a very beautiful part about two-ness too, is I think we are seers and knowers of people. People feel seen and known by us for who they are.
So Erin, because is the 3 that's the more chameleon like personality that can be more like whoever you need me to be kind of person?
Yeah. I don't know if Ashley relates to that, but I am so that.
The charming, like, let me mold, let me do, you know. Whereas the 2-1 maybe feels more clear and like, this is kind of the right way I do it. Like it comes from like an internal, you know, this is what it looks like to caretake or nurture. Ashley, what's your superpower?
Well, literally the word was chameleonize, but y'all called it. So, yeah, I mean, to your point, like, I think it's such a strength. Like, I can certainly see where it's served me throughout life to be able to chameleonize. There have been times I've questioned the integrity of it. And there has been like some excavating of like knowing that I wasn't in integrity because I was able to do it. And I don't know. So, I mean, it's a superpower, and it's something that I own as an older person, an older version of myself. But, and I do think it's provided so many opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And also, there's also that part of me that's like, I don't know that I would wish it on my daughter. If that makes sense. It's very twofold for me.
I hear that, especially if we're orienting from the relieving it, right? Like wanting to be in choice and in power over it, not the other way. And I think that's part of what makes the Enneagram so motivating for me, is the access to choice, not just out of habit, but to step into and do and live in a way that is in alignment with what I want. And then also the sort of power and choice to say, oh, I can sort of curate that for my children, the best of my ability, right? Like I know I don't have control over all of it. So sort of the release of that tension. So I adore all 3 of you. I mostly have gotten to know all of you in virtual community, and yet in your big 2 energy have made me feel so seen and so loved and so nurtured, that they feel like real concrete, you live in my community down the street friendships. And then I have to remind myself, oh, they live in different states, and I've actually only like hugged their bodies one time in my whole lives. And you know, like I have to be reminded of that. And I think that is my reflection of your gift. What I see and what I take is that it doesn't matter time or space. Your energetic love is so big, it sort of transcends that. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this and share that with others, so that maybe they can see the beauty in what they have and find some relief and release in it. So thank you
Mm.
so much.
Thank you, Erin. Thanks for all that you've taught me/us.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it helps me to be healthier.
Yes. Helps my two-ness to be balanced.